Should he stay or should he go? Should Drew Bannister be the coach of the St. Louis Blues going forward? We have a lot to talk about today on Locked on Blues.
You're Locked on Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to Locked on Blues. I am your host of Locked on Blues, Haley Taylor-Simon, talking to you all things about our St. Louis Blues here on the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. First off, that intro is banging, and I'm so happy that we have a new intro for this off season. On today's episode, I will be talking about should Drew Bannister stay as the Blues' head coach, or would he better fit in a different role going forward next season? I will also be grading Robert Thomas because it's always Robert Thomas season, even though it's the off season. And then, of course, we need to talk about Joel Hofer. And I think that it's safe to say that he is our backup goalie. And I feel uber confident about that. Also, just a friendly reminder, even though it is the off season, make sure to smash that subscribe button and stay up to date with all the Locked on Blues episodes 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. Just because the Blues season is done doesn't mean that this podcast is done at all. It's only going to be busier and better, and I have so many cool things planned. So definitely make sure to stay in tuned with the episodes because you never know what exclusive interviews you might get. And I'll leave it at that. So before I dive any deeper about if Drew Bannister should stay or go, I just want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. When it comes to Drew Bannister, I know that there's a lot of people that are like, Haley, he should go. He shouldn't be the coach of the Blues. And I understand that. I do. I get that at the end of the day, you need a more experienced coach. You need somebody that knows how to really take a team that has a good foundation, to be honest, tweak it up a little bit, work on the power play. I get what they need to do. But do I think that Drew Bannister should be out of a job? No. I think that he was put in a position where he had to step up and take on a role that he wasn't probably planning on doing. He was the head coach of the Thunderbirds. And as much as I love the T-Birds, I can also understand that it's a completely different league, the AHL versus the NHL. And I think that after Berube was fired, feel how you want about it, Drew Bannister then had to take on a role that honestly was a really difficult role to walk into. So I think at the end of the day, he did better than most people in that position would have done. I think that he got this team to be more motivated and say what you want. And I know we're going to have those discussions of, Berube was wrongfully fired, this sucks. And I get how you feel. I do. But I think that we can also acknowledge the fact that a guy like Drew Bannister really stepped up big time and did better than expectations. So I think that him having a role in the organization going forward should be implemented. I mean, maybe make him an assistant coach, do something, but allow him to still be involved with the Blues' organization. I think in anybody's position, you're a first-time NHL head coach, interim head coach, I might add. Yeah, it's going to be a huge change. And I was fortunate enough when I was covering the Blues when they came out to where I live to talk to him. And, he cares so much about this team. And even though he may not be the fit as the right head coach of the Blues going forward, I think for what he had to deal with this season, he did a good job. And does a good job mean making it to the playoffs? It could mean other things. It can mean having a winning record since he took over. It can mean developing certain players. And don't forget, he was the head coach of the Thunderbirds. And I say this a lot because he previously worked with players like a Jake Neighbors and a Tyler Tucker and a Scott Perunovich. I think when you actually think about, all the players that Drew Bannister has worked with previously, and you think about how they played this season on the Blues ever since he took over, you can see growth in their play. And I think having that consistency of having the same coach essentially was beneficial. So I think having him maybe still be involved, give him another kind of position, maybe not the power play coach at all. But yeah, no, not the power play coach, but something. Allow him to do something so we can still be there. I think that you should be rewarded in a sense, but do I think that he's going to be the head coach of the team? And that's where I say no. And I've talked about this previously, but what do I say no? What evidence has Doug Armstrong essentially given me to say no? It is because Doug Armstrong said that he was going to have Drew Bannister be in the small circle of candidates that he was going to talk to about the position going forward. To me, and I'm not, like a PR person like that, but to me, that seems like a very PR kind of move. You're at your breakup day press conference. Yeah, I'm going to speak to, Drew. He's in a small circle of candidates. That to me says you're saying it because you want to be polite, but you have somebody else in mind. That's what it got me. I think that if Drew Bannister was going to be the head coach of the St. Louis Blues, Doug Armstrong would just flat out say, I'm really impressed with how he played. I'm not played, how he coached. I am going to make him, you know, our head coach going forward and take away the interim title. But the fact that he is openly willing to speak to other candidates, it just goes to show that Bannister is probably not going to get it. I say probably because that is not a fact. It is not set in stone. Maybe in a month, you and I will be talking about the fact that Drew Bannister is the head coach of the Blues. And if that happens, then that happens and I was wrong. But from context clues, and also another thing that Doug Armstrong said that he wanted to have the new head coach by the NHL draft at the end of June. And then he said June 1st. So two different dates, both involving June, which means that it seems to me, again, the timeline could go with somebody that's currently maybe an assistant coach, something with a team in the playoffs right now. Now, again, it's not set in stone, and who knows? I could be wrong, right? I could be, completely wrong about this. I could be way off the nail in the coffin, as some might say. But this has been a huge debate within our fan base. So I asked you on Locked On Blues on Twitter, I said, do you think Bannister stays as the head coach? And the amount of, I think I got like 50 replies. And the reason why I think this is such a crazy topic right now is because we don't know the direction of our team. We had a season where we honestly could have been in the playoffs, and we had a handful of bad losses and just some unfortunate situations. I get the frustration. And a bunch of you says, I don't think he will be. But then what I was saying was other people said that there might be somebody that's currently in the playoffs. So I think that you and I might be onto something. I think that at the end of the day, we're all thinking the same thing, because if Doug Armstrong liked a candidate who was available now, why not name him now? And why wait and say June? When you say June, that makes it seem like you're waiting for somebody now. And there's also, oh, well, it could be a collegiate coach. I don't want that. No, I want somebody with NHL coaching experience, number one. And as I said, I can't even do a list of potential people because I don't know what Doug Armstrong is looking for. And I could go talk about every single coach right now that is in the playoffs. I could. I could make a whole episode. Would you care? No, because I don't care in that sense. I just want to know who our next coach will be. I want to know, and I'm sure the players want to know. I'm sure so many people want to know. And I get waiting until June, but Doug, let's be honest. You're only waiting until June because that coach is in the playoffs. And listen, if I was at that press conference, I would have flat out said, is it because your other candidates are currently busy with your team actively playing? Because it's the only thing that makes sense. So again, I guess we're gonna have to wait until a certain team, who knows what team gets eliminated from the playoffs or they win the cup. Who knows? Either way, Doug Armstrong, we know you well enough to know that it's not gonna be Drew Bannister, and it's just unfortunate because in a way I feel bad. He's kind of like giving Bannister some hope in a sense, and like that's kind of mean considering. So no, no, thank you, Doug. But I want to talk to you about my friends over at Game Time. I love Game Time. Game Time is my favorite app when I want to go to different sporting events. And right now, seeing our Cardinals in action, not the best start to the season, but it's still early days, still April, taking on the D backs, which sucks. But I use Game Time. You get tickets last minute with the lowest price guaranteed. And with Game Time, you also can see exactly where you're sitting. And they have, the last minute deals. They have flash deals, zone deals, all in pricing, seat views, lowest price guaranteed. It is phenomenal what this app truly does offer to make sure that you're not getting scammed, first off, and you're getting the best prices, and you know exactly what you're getting. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. It is now the off season, which means that I'm going to begin creating players. Hail. Which player do I think is the best on the team? Robert Thomas, which is why the bio for my Twitter account, the Locked On Blues account, literally says it's Robert Thomas season because it's legitimately Robert Thomas season. Robert Thomas, to me, is a superstar. He really is. And it's unfortunate when you think about other players in the league. You think about superstars and you might think of a Connor McDavid, and Austin Matthews, Ovechkin, Crosby. Like you think about all these different players, right? And not once does anybody ever say Robert Thomas. And it's not because he isn't a good player. I think that he just needs a couple more seasons of just showing how great he is. And I know that he's done that, but he needs more of just special, special, special. It's unfortunate because a video that went viral of him was during that Stars game that they had last Wednesday. And it's when he missed basically an open net, and Ottinger kind of like, took the puck away. And it sucks because that went around and everyone's like probably looking and it's like, oh, this Robert Thomas guy sucks. And I'm like, no, like he's amazing. And that's of course the video that gets around. So, cool. Thanks, social media for the NHL, really helping out our boy RT. But no, it is Robert Thomas season. And this season, he played all 82 games. And this was the first time Robert Thomas has played all 82 games. So, again, that in itself is an accomplishment because playing all 82 games and being healthy is big, 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 big. But let's go take a look. So, this season, Robert Thomas got the most goals that he's ever had in his season with 26. But he also achieved the most assists, 60 assists. Okay, making his total points 86. He had a +9, which is amazing, 48 penalty minutes, 8 power play goals. He had one shorthanded goal too. But are you kidding me? And for people to ever say, oh, Robert Thomas isn't good, he is the best player on the St. Louis Blues. And what an outstanding season for Robert Thomas. I am going to give Robert Thomas an A+. I don't give out A+s often, so definitely one of the few that deserves an A+. But you couldn't have expected more of a better season from Robert Thomas. At the beginning of the season, I said I want Robert Thomas to score at least 21 goals, and he exceeded expectation with 26. When it came to assists, I said I would love for Robert Thomas to have at least 55. 60. Are you kidding me? Robert Thomas is the only player on the St. Louis Blues that exceeded my expectations by that much. And it's a shame that he's not in the categories of being like a superstar, because he truly is a superstar in the making. I mean, you can't ask for a player to play with more heart on the ice, to be more selfless. Everything that Robert Thomas does on the ice is insanity in the best way possible. Even on our awful power play, he is still a shining star. Everything he does. And I will defend this man forever and ever in interviewing Robert Thomas. He's a little shy. I'm not shy. But even just talking to him, you can just tell how focused he is. And I cannot wait to show you that interview. I just am so impressed the fact that Robert Thomas had the season that he had. I am proud of how he's played. And yes, going forward to next season, I don't know how much more I can ask of him. Maybe I can say, oh, instead of getting 86 points, get 90 points somehow. But even then, it's unbelievable how great of a season Robert Thomas had, especially when you compare all of his other years. I'm getting loud, I'm getting feisty, but come on. It's Robert Thomas season. And he's going to be the captain of the Blues one day, no doubt. He implements everything our Blue Note means to us. He plays with such heart. He is just such a skilled player. I mean, oh my gosh, it's unbelievable to think what you get out of Robert Thomas. And I really can't even put into words how much of a steal he was. I mean, 20th overall draft pick in the 2017 entry level draft, only 24 years old right now, and has been just absolutely phenomenal. And again, say what you want about Robert Thomas, but he is the future of the Blues. Okay. The future of the Blues. His rookie year, I always forget he played 70 games, and now he played his first ever 82. So good job, Robert Thomas. I'm always proud of you. A plus 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 plus, because what we saw on the ice this year from you was absolutely amazing. And if only every other player had the same work ethic that you do. Because fun fact, at the Blues' morning skate when I was covering them up here, and he was the first player on the ice for like 5 minutes, just working on faceoffs. Like, out of all the players on the Blues, out of every player, he was on the ice first when other ones of you could have used that time. So, Robert Thomas, thank you for being truly one of the best players that I have been watching in the past couple of seasons, because I needed it. But I do want to tell you about my friends over at FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your number one place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. But on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all in the app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit fanduel.com/locked on and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. So I think it's fair to say, but I still need to talk about this, that Joel Hofer should be the number one backup. And the reason why I wanted to just put this out there, I know that it was a big discussion point heading into the season if Hofer was going to be able to live up to expectations that we had of him. In the beginning of the season, and I want you to go back just a little bit, he did struggle a little early on. And then there was even, hey, should we bring up Subban? I don't know if Hofer's ready yet. And then very quickly, that changed during, I guess, like a little bit before the midway point of the season. I think Joel Hofer has secured the fact that he is the number one backup. But it is important to remind you of how far he has come. And sometimes I need to do that too, where I think about how the season ended. I'm like, oh, this is great. And I'm like, wait, in the beginning of the season, I definitely did not have the same opinion. And opinions will change about players all the time. Completely normal, completely valid. It happens. But I do think, seeing how much Hofer developed this season makes me feel really secure about what's to come next. Binnington is still going to be here. He's not going anywhere yet. Locked in. Goalies have a longer lifespan, by the way, in the NHL, and that is something that you see in guys like a Marc-Andre Fleury. And while I don't think anyone's going to be able to sustain that, you just see in general that goalies can sustain longer careers. And I hate to be like, oh, it's less physical, but it is less physical, right? You're not getting forechecked all the time, but unless there's goalie on goalie fights or goalie fights, or you know what? I'm proud that Binnington didn't have any fights this season or attempted to. But the reason why I say this, it's because the Blues' goalie tandem right now might be one of the best in the NHL. And you have a really young guy, and I hate to go, Hofer's young, but he is. He has more development, more to experience. He has more to learn. And one of the things when I interviewed Jordan Binnington was about Joel Hofer. And I'm going to do an episode about what Binnington told me about Hofer. I'll play that for you because it is interesting, because I do feel like Binnington, ever since he's had to take on this role of being like a mentor in a way, has been more grounded out on the ice, which is maybe not the Binnington that you and I are used to seeing, because we're used to seeing expressive Jordan Binnington. And this year, it's kind of just been like, wait, he's locked in, he's focused, his emotions are not getting the best out of him. What has happened to him? But it's all a very positive thing. It's him maturing too, right? So that's another takeaway. It's not just the fact that he's, just emotional on the ice, maturing. So I think Joel Hofer having this, backup position to Binnington has been a positive, honestly, for both of them. And the only thing is, and it's not any of their faults, is the defense could be more solid. We know that. It's, I can discuss that till pigs begin flying. But for what it's worth, I do think that Hofer had a good season. Beginning was rough, no denying that. But when I do my grade evaluation on him, the goalie grades are going to be a little bit different than guys like a Robert Thomas. Robert Thomas was easy. Like players like a Kyrie, that's going to be like a whole in-depth episode. But it's easy to do the guys that play really good hockey and basically are superstars. It's a little bit more difficult to do episodes where you really have to evaluate how they actually play throughout the season. And that's when it becomes, okay, let's break down what happened. So, yes, I will break down, the first chunk of games where everybody, including myself, was panicking about Joel Hofer and if he was the right fit for the Blues. A lot to discuss coming up this week. Again, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Super easy to do. If you're not on YouTube and you're listening on any of your devices, hello, and I hope you're doing well. Busy, busy, busy off season. And leave me a comment below about which player impressed you the most this season. I will talk to you tomorrow. And like always, let's go Blues.